On the night of our anniversary, I lit the candles and pan-seared the steaks. When my fiancé, Ryan, walked in, a strange woman followed behind him. Ryan pulled out the chair I usually sit in and pressed the woman down into it. She just went through a breakup. She wants to experience what it feels like to be treated with care. I stood there frozen, spatula in hand. Sophie had already cut into my steak, took a bite, and frowned. A little overdone. Ryan quickly pushed his own plate toward her. Have mine. This one's tender. The background music was still the song I'd picked, but the two people sitting at the table clinked their wine glasses like a real couple. Ryan turned and waved at me. Don't just stand there. Go fry another one. Lots of black pepper. Sophie likes it. I looked at the rose petals I'd spent 3 hours arranging, the handwritten menu, the custom anniversary cake. All of it had become someone else's backdrop. Sophie chewed her steak and looked up. Olivia, don't mind me. I'm just experiencing it for one night. I smiled, untied my apron, folded it, pulled out the matching ring I'd planned to exchange tonight from the drawer, and set it gently on the shoe cabinet. Take your time experiencing it. You can have the whole package. Ryan chased me to the door. Where are you going? The anniversary isn't over yet. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the first floor. Your anniversary with someone else. I'm not celebrating it. Just as the doors were closing, I caught a glimpse of Ryan's panicked half-face through the last gap. The elevator stopped on the first floor. The metal doors had barely slid open when his hand reached in. Ryan stood outside, out of breath. He hadn't even changed out of his slippers. Olivia, when did you get so hot-tempered? He frowned. Sophie just went through a jerk. She didn't even want to go on living. I was just borrowing the setting to let her feel a little warmth from the world. Do you have to put on this act like you've been horribly wronged? I looked at him calmly. Ryan, today is our 5th anniversary. I spent a whole day setting things up, and you bring another woman home to experience it. And you think I'm the one with the bad temper? Ryan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I told you, she's just experiencing it for one night. You're usually so easygoing. Why are you being so petty today? The sound of high heels came from the stairwell. Click, click, click. Sophie walked down wearing my custom rabbit slippers. In her hand, she held the plate of steak she complained was overdone. What stung even more was the men's matching ring on her right index finger, the one I'd just left on the shoe cabinet. Because it was too big, she was holding it in place with her thumb. Olivia, don't be mad at Ryan. Sophie held the steak out toward me. Here, I'm giving this steak back to you. I don't want it anymore. I stared at the ring on her finger. Who told you to touch that ring? Sophie flinched and hid behind Ryan. I saw it on the shoe cabinet and thought it looked pretty. Olivia, I'm only experiencing it for one night. I'll give it back tomorrow. Can't you even lend me a ring to experience? Ryan immediately shielded Sophie behind him. It's just a ring. Do you have to snap at her like that? Her emotions are really unstable right now. Can't you show a little empathy? I was so angry I laughed. Empathy? My anniversary is ruined. My fiancé is protecting another woman. And you want me to have empathy for a woman who just casually puts on someone else's wedding ring? Ryan's face darkened. Olivia, you're being unreasonable. Sophie's already miserable enough. Do you have to push her over the edge tonight? Sophie started sniffling softly behind Ryan. Ryan, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have craved this little bit of warmth. I'll leave now. She made a move to run out. Ryan grabbed her arm. Where are you going? It's raining outside. It's dangerous for a girl alone. Ryan turned to me. Give me the car keys. I stared at him coldly. What are you going to do? I'm taking Sophie for a drive to calm her down. Ryan held out his hand matter-of-factly. You take some time to cool off tonight. Call me when you've thought it through. I don't have the keys. I refused. Ryan reached straight into my coat pocket. He smoothly pulled out the Porsche key fob. When are you going to stop lying? He tossed the keys in his hand. Sophie's afraid of the dark. This car has a starlight roof. Let her experience it. I stared at my now empty pocket. Ryan, you took the car. How am I supposed to get back? Ryan pressed the unlock button. The car lights flashed twice in the distance. Can't you just take a taxi? Sophie can't handle any more stress right now. Cut her some slack. He opened the passenger door and helped Sophie in. Sophie leaned out the window. Olivia, this starlight roof is gorgeous. Thanks for letting me use your car. I'll give it back once I'm done. Ryan walked around to the driver's side and opened the door. He glanced back at me. It's raining out there. Even if you want to leave, don't be stubborn about it. I watched the rain hit the asphalt. I'm not being stubborn. I'm betting you'll be on your knees begging me one day. You didn't come home last night. Did you really stay at a hotel? Ryan's voice came through the phone, thick with irritation. I sat on the hotel bed, scrolling through my phone. The first post on my feed was a 9-grid photo Ryan had uploaded half an hour ago. The pictures showed the rose petals I'd arranged, the French menu I'd handwritten, and the engagement ring on Sophie's finger. The caption read, "Helping a wounded soul rebuild faith and love." The comments were blowing up. Mutual friends were asking if the proposal was a success. Ryan replied to all of them, "No, just helping a poor girl experience what it feels like to be loved." I turned off the screen. What does it matter to you whether I come back or not? There was a 2-second silence on the line. Olivia, haven't you caused enough drama tonight? Sophie's been blaming herself all morning for taking your spot. You need to come back, apologize to her, and let this go. I hung up. Half an hour later, I pushed open the apartment door. The living room reeked of cheap perfume. The usually tidy sofa was covered in takeout containers. I walked straight to the bedroom. The door was half open. Sophie was sitting at my vanity, wearing my favorite silk pajamas, holding a pair of scissors. The floor was littered with shredded paper. When I saw what she'd cut, my blood ran cold. It was the original design sketches for the Paris competition, due next week. What are you doing? I snatched the half-cut paper from her hand. Sophie jumped, dropping the scissors. Olivia, you're back. She blinked innocently. I saw a pile of scrap paper on the table and thought I'd use it for cutting. I've loved paper cutting since I was a kid. I wanted to see what it felt like with this high-quality paper. I stared at the ruined pieces of my work. 3 months of late nights, all destroyed. These are my competition originals. Who told you to touch them? I pointed at the door. Take off my pajamas and get out. Now. Sophie's eyes instantly reddened. She stood up and backed away. Olivia, don't be so mean. They're just some stupid papers. I'll pay you back, okay? She deliberately stumbled and fell onto the carpet. Just then, the bathroom door opened. Ryan stepped out with only a towel around his waist, his hair still dripping. When he saw Sophie on the floor, his face changed. Olivia, what the hell? He rushed over and shoved me hard. My back slammed into the wardrobe door with a dull thud. Ryan carefully helped Sophie up. Did you hurt yourself? Sophie leaned into him and shook her head. Ryan, I'm fine. It's my fault. I shouldn't have touched Olivia's scrap paper. Ryan turned to me furious. Are you crazy? You come home and start hitting people? I held up the torn sketches. She destroyed my competition originals. Scrap paper? This is my life's work. Ryan glanced at the paper scraps on the floor and shrugged dismissively. They're just some drawings. Can't you just redo them? You pushed her over a few pieces of paper? She still has the cuts on her wrist from yesterday. I looked at the man in front of me and felt a sudden, profound distance. Redo them? The deadline is in 3 days. Ryan, you make me sick. What did you say? Who's sick? I'm trying to help someone. Ryan blocked the bedroom doorway, raising his voice. He grabbed his shirt and threw it on. Sophie has severe depression. The doctor said she can't be upset. Can't you be more tolerant as an adult? I stared at him coldly. Tolerate her ruining my career? Ryan, this apartment is mine. The blueprints are mine. I'm demanding compensation from her now, and she needs to get out immediately. Ryan pulled a bank card from his wallet. He slapped it down on the dresser. There's $20,000 in here. Enough for you to buy 100 of those crappy pieces of paper. Don't be so relentless when you're in the right. Sophie peeked out from behind Ryan. Somehow, she had picked up the scissors again. The tip was pressed against her own wrist. Since Olivia can't stand me, I'll die right here. I'll give you back your piece. There was indeed a faint red mark on her wrist. Ryan was scared out of his wits. He lunged over, snatched the scissors away, and threw them far. Sophie, don't do anything stupid. He turned and glared at me. Olivia, are you happy now? Do you have to push someone to the brink of death to be satisfied? He pointed at my nose. Now, apologize to Sophie immediately. I stood there, not moving an inch. Why should I apologize? The one who should apologize is the thief who wore someone else's pajamas and destroyed their property. Ryan was furious. Fine, you won't apologize, huh? The funding for your studio's art exhibition next month. I brought in all the investors. Do you believe I'll have them pull out tomorrow? I looked at his smug face. The studio's investment was indeed under Ryan's company name, but he had no idea that the so-called investor was actually a subordinate sent by my brother. Ryan always thought it was his own influence. Do whatever you want. My voice was calm. Ryan thought I was just putting up a front. He sneered. Fine. Let's see how long you can keep up this act. He pressed Sophie down to sit on the bed. You have to move out tonight. Sophie will have a breakdown if she sees you now. Once she calms down, I'll come pick you up. I walked to the closet and pulled open the door, dragged out a suitcase. Don't bother picking me up. I tossed a few everyday clothes into the suitcase. I don't want anything in this house anymore, including you. Ryan froze for a moment. He seemed not to expect me to leave so decisively. What kind of game are you playing now? Playing hard to get? Do you think I'll beg you to stay just because you're walking out with a suitcase? I zipped up the suitcase. Toss the spare Porsche key onto the table. Keep the car for yourselves to enjoy. I dragged the suitcase to the door. Ryan took a couple of steps after me. Move out tonight. Once Sophie calms down, I'll come pick you up, he ordered. I didn't look back. Don't bother. This place is too dirty for me. I'm giving it to you. What game are you playing now? Playing hard to get? Ryan sneered. The elevator doors closed in front of me, shutting out his smug face. I dragged my suitcase and checked into the Peninsula Hotel in the city center. For the next 3 days, I didn't answer a single call from Ryan. I contacted the organizing committee in Paris, explained the situation, and applied for an extension to submit the digital version. 3 days later, a top-tier industry banquet was held in the city. As an independent designer, I received an invitation. I stepped into the banquet hall in a sharply tailored black suit. Just as I grabbed a glass of champagne, I heard a familiar laugh. This dress is really beautiful, Ryan. I'll take it off after wearing it for one night. I turned around. Ryan, in a custom suit, was holding a wine glass and chatting with a few industry bosses. Sophie was clinging to his arm. She was wearing the haute couture gown I had left in the apartment, the one I had specially designed for tonight's banquet. Sophie clearly couldn't pull off the dress. It hung loose at her chest, held together only by pins. She was holding a glass of juice, playing the victim among the socialites. I really didn't want to wear such an expensive dress. But Olivia has such a bad temper. She kicked me out, and I had no clothes to wear. Ryan felt bad for me, so he let me try it on. A few clueless heiresses around her showed sympathetic looks. That Olivia is way too domineering.
Exactly.
Mr. He is so kind-hearted, and she's still throwing a tantrum. I walked over with my champagne. The crowd parted to make way. Ryan saw me and immediately frowned. How did you get in? You can't get into a banquet of this level without an invitation. He looked me up and down. Are you wearing black to a funeral? Sophie shrank behind Ryan. Olivia, don't blame Ryan for bringing me. I just wanted to experience what a high society dinner feels like. Ryan patted the back of Sophie's hand. He turned to look at the few bosses around. Everyone, let me take this opportunity to announce something. Our company just landed a major project from the Bennett Group. I plan to put Sophie in full charge of this project. Consider it a chance for her to practice and rebuild her confidence. The people around gasped. That was a Bennett Group project. Originally, Ryan had negotiated this project under my name. Now he was actually going to give it to a woman who knew nothing. Ryan walked up to me, holding his wine glass with an air of superiority. All you have to do is toast Sophie now and apologize. I can still give you half the project. I looked at them, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. Ryan, did you forget what the last name of the person who has the final say on that project is? I asked, swirling my wine glass. What do you mean? The project investor is the Bennett family of the Beijing Circle. Could they be your relatives? Ryan let out a sneer. A few people around started laughing too. Olivia, if you want to claim connections, at least find a believable excuse. The Bennett family, are you even worthy of associating with them? Ryan extended his wine glass forward. Stop wasting words. Quickly toast Sophie. My patience is limited. I slowly and unhurriedly put down my wine glass. The lights in the banquet hall suddenly dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage directly ahead. The host of the dinner, Alexander, the current head of the Bennett Group, walked up. He was wearing a custom-made dark patterned suit, exuding full presence. The audience instantly fell silent. Ryan also put away his nonchalant expression and stood up straight. Alexander tested the microphone. Thank you all for gracing us with your presence tonight. Taking this opportunity, I formally introduced to everyone the true heir of the Bennett Group. Also my most precious younger sister. The audience erupted in commotion. Everyone knew the Bennett family had a mysterious eldest daughter, but she had never appeared publicly. Alexander's gaze cut through the crowd and landed precisely on me. Olivia, come here. The spotlight instantly moved, enveloping my entire body in its beam. The people around gasped and quickly scattered. Ryan's smile froze on his face. The wine glass in his hand shook, and wine spilled onto his cuff. Sophie's eyes widened even more, staring at me as if I were a monster. I adjusted the cuffs of my suit. Under everyone's gaze, I steadily walked onto the stage. Alexander handed me the microphone. I looked down at Ryan, whose face was deathly pale. Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Olivia, the sole heir of the Bennett Group. The audience was dead silent. I shifted my gaze to Ryan. And incidentally, I have two announcements. First, the Bennett Group will immediately withdraw funding from all projects under Ryan's name. Furthermore, the legal department will pursue criminal charges for his misappropriation of studio funds. Ryan's legs went weak, and he almost fell to his knees. He pushed aside the people next to him and rushed to the front of the stage. The second thing. I pointed at Sophie in the audience. The dress that young lady is wearing is my Olivia's personal design. Since you like experiencing things so much, security, have her take it off in public and compensate at the original price. Several black-suited security guards immediately stepped forward and surrounded Sophie. Sophie screamed in fear, clutching her chest tightly.
No.
You can't touch me. Ryan, pale-faced, rushed to the front of the stage. Olivia, you're joking with me, right? You're just an ordinary painter. Ryan's voice trembled. I looked down at him from my height. Are you even worthy of my joke? Security, throw these two pieces of trash out. You can't touch me. I'm her fiancé. Ryan was being held with his arms twisted behind his back by two strong security guards, struggling wildly. His custom suit was wrinkled, and his tie was askew. Sophie was trembling in fear on the side. She even lost one of her high heels. The security guard unceremoniously unzipped the back of her dress. Take it off yourself, or should we do it? The guard asked coldly. Sophie's makeup was ruined from crying, and she had to humiliatingly take off that haute couture gown. Underneath, there was only a thin slip dress. She hugged her shoulders and was dragged out by the security guards like a dead dog amidst the laughter of the socialites. I stood on the steps, watching the two of them in their disheveled state. My eyes showed no emotion. The next morning, I sat in the president's office on the top floor of Bennett Group. My assistant placed a stack of documents on my desk. Olivia, Ryan's company has completely shut down. All partners withdrew their investments overnight, and the bank has frozen his accounts. I opened the file and glanced at it. I had already blocked Ryan's phone number, but he kept texting me from countless unfamiliar numbers. Olivia, I really know I was wrong. Can you forgive me? That Sophie is a liar. She doesn't even have depression. I went back last night and found she was trying to take the rest of my money and run. I've already called the police. I sneered and tossed my phone aside. The assistant continued reporting. Ryan is downstairs right now. He doesn't have an appointment, so security won't let him in. He just knelt down in the square outside the main entrance. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked down. It was pouring rain outside. A blurry black knelt in the rain, looking especially small. Does he think a self-pity act will work on me? I took a sip of coffee. What about Sophie? The police found out she's a repeat offender, using this kind of trick to gain sympathy and scam money. Those wrist-cutting scars on her body were all drawn on with waterproof eyeliner. The assistant's tone carried a hint of sarcasm. Ryan is so stupid, falling for such low-level tactics. I turned around and went back to my desk. His stupidity isn't just about being blind. It's also about his condescending desire to play benefactor. The intercom on the desk rang. The assistant picked up, listened for a moment, and covered the receiver. Olivia, Ryan has been kneeling downstairs for 3 hours. He says he won't get up until he sees you, the assistant reported. Without looking up, I signed a document. Then let him kneel there until he dies. And call a sprinkler truck to wash his brain. Olivia, I know I was wrong. Come out and see me. Ryan's shouting downstairs couldn't even be heard on the 30th floor, but I could see his twisted face clearly on the surveillance screen. The sprinkler truck actually came. High-pressure water jets mercilessly blasted him, soaking him like a drowned rat. He tried to stand several times but was knocked down by the water. Half an hour later, a commotion broke out in the first-floor lobby. Ryan's mother had somehow gotten the news and barged into the company's first floor. Ignoring the security guard's attempts to stop her, she threw a tantrum on the lobby sofa. Olivia, you heartless woman, come out here. My son just showed a little kindness by taking in a homeless girl. Do you have to drive him to death? I frowned and pressed the elevator button to go downstairs. When the elevator doors opened, the employees in the lobby made way. Mrs. He saw me and immediately scrambled up from the floor. Pointing at my nose, she cursed loudly. You always pretended to be so poor, but it was all a lie. You're so rich. What's wrong with helping my son? He's your fiancé of 5 years. I looked at her coldly. Turning to the lobby manager, I said, turn on the big screen. A surveillance video instantly appeared on the big screen. It was recorded by a hidden camera I had left in the apartment. In the video, the moment I dragged my suitcase out the door, Ryan carried Sophie into my bedroom. The two of them rolled around on my bed. Sophie's coquettish voice came through the speakers. Ryan, now that Olivia is gone, does this house belong to me to experience? Ryan's voice was full of lust. It's all yours. She's just a piece of wood who doesn't understand romance. The lobby fell into dead silence. Mrs. He's face turned from red to white, her mouth open but unable to say a word. I walked up to her. This is your son's kindness? Not only did he bring someone to my bed to show kindness, but he also used my money to support this scammer. I waved my hand. Security, throw her out. From now on, no member of the Cole family is allowed to set foot in Bennett Group. Ryan's mother was dragged out by 2 security guards. Outside, Ryan, who had just picked himself up from the rain, saw this. He rushed over, dragging his feverish body. Through the glass door, he stared at me intently. Olivia, if you want revenge on me, fine, but why humiliate my mom? Ryan's eyes were red. I smiled. Humiliate? This is just the beginning. I'm going to make sure your whole family can't stay in Jing City. Do you have to be so ruthless? Our 5 years of feelings, all destroyed because of an outsider? Ryan broke down, crying through the glass door. His tears mixed with the rain, looking pitiful and ridiculous. I looked at him like he was a joke. 5 years? During those 5 years, I hid my identity and helped him build his business. To help him land clients, I drank until my stomach bled. To save him money, I never bought a single piece of clothing over 500 yuan. What did I get in return? Him bringing another woman home on our anniversary to try things out. Him casually saying, just redraw it, when my hard work was destroyed. I turned and went upstairs without giving him another look. The next month, I used Bennett Group's resources to completely shut down Ryan. I forcibly acquired his company's core patent at a rock-bottom price. Ryan was buried under tens of millions in debt. He went from the lofty president he to a debtor everyone avoided. He begged his former friends who used to call him brother. But they all knew he had offended the Bennett family, and no one dared to lend him money. To pay off his debts, he had to work as a laborer on a construction site. On the day of start of winter, I rode in a Rolls-Royce to inspect one of Bennett Group's real estate projects. The car stopped outside the site. Through the window, I saw Ryan carrying cement. He was covered in mud, his hair a tangled mess. The man who once wouldn't tolerate a single wrinkle on his shirt was now bowing and scraping to the foreman for a few dozen yuan. He turned and saw the Rolls-Royce parked by the road, and saw me sitting in the back seat. He froze. The cement bag slipped from his hands and hit the ground, kicking up dust. He instinctively wanted to hide, too ashamed to lift his head. "Stop the car," I said calmly. The driver hit the brakes. I rolled down the window and stared at him coldly. Ryan looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. He dragged himself over to the window. "Olivia, you still care about me, don't you?" His voice was hoarse, his eyes begging. I pulled a 100 yuan bill from my bag and tossed it out the window. The red note landed in the muddy water. "Since you're working so hard carrying bricks, here's a tip. You're treating me like a beggar?" Ryan stared at the 100 yuan in the mud, trembling. His pride was completely shattered in that moment. I rolled up the window and drove off. In the rearview mirror, I saw him finally bend down and pick up that filthy bill. Half a month later, my assistant brought me a social news briefing. Sophie had been detained for a few days for attempted fraud and then released. Penniless, she ended up working as a hostess in an underground club. Fate is so dramatic. Ryan used the money he earned from carrying bricks to go get drunk at that same club. They ran into each other in a private room. The former benefactor and poor little sister were now enemies. They blamed each other for ruining their lives. They started fighting in the room. Sophie grabbed a bottle from the table and smashed it over Ryan's head. Ryan went crazy and grabbed Sophie by the throat. If the security hadn't arrived in time, it could have been fatal. Now both are in the hospital, and once their injuries heal, they'll be transferred to detention. I threw the briefing into the shredder. Watching the paper get torn apart, I felt nothing. Alexander pushed open the office door and walked in. He handed me a glass of hot milk. "Saw the news?" He leaned against the desk. "Want me to make a call and have them locked away for good?" I took a sip of the milk. "No need. They're already in the mud. They'll tear each other apart. No need to dirty our hands." Alexander nodded approvingly. He reached out and ruffled my hair. "You've grown up. You handle things with restraint." He changed the subject. "It's really not worth dirtying your hands over trash like them. However, about next month's engagement party, would you like to consider the one from the Clark family?" my brother asked with a smile. I raised an eyebrow. The Clark family was the only one in the Beijing circle that could rival the Bennett family. The one from the Clark family? I heard he's a workaholic who keeps his distance from women. A workaholic is fine. At least he won't bring home a woman he just broke up with on our anniversary, I said with a light laugh. Alexander shook his head helplessly. "Don't compare that trash to Nathan." Nathan, the current head of the Clark family. Actually, I had known him for a long time. Back when I was hiding my identity and dating Ryan, Nathan had quietly helped me more than once. But I was blind back then, my eyes and heart only focused on Ryan. Later, I found out that Nathan had secretly loved me for 7 years. Next month's engagement party, he had personally come to Alexander to ask for it. 1 month later, the largest 7-star hotel in the city was completely booked out. The whole city was watching. The news of the alliance between the Bennett and Clark families dominated the headlines of every major media outlet. On the day of the engagement party, heavy snow fell. Ryan had just been released from the detention center. Because he had injured a nerve in a fight, he walked with a limp. Wearing a shabby cotton coat, he stood outside the hotel's security perimeter. On the massive LED screen on the hotel's exterior wall, the scene inside the banquet hall was being broadcast live. I was wearing a pure white haute couture gown, holding Nathan's arm. The way Nathan looked at me was filled with ultimate affection and cherishment. Ryan watched this scene through the screen. Regret gnawed at his heart like a venomous snake. He suddenly raised his hand and slapped himself twice hard. He tried to break through the security line. Olivia, I was wrong. He shouted hoarsely. The security guard at the door kicked him mercilessly into the snow. He lay on the ground, like a dog that had lost its home. Inside the banquet hall, it was warm as spring. I received everyone's blessings. Nathan took out a priceless pink diamond ring from a velvet box. He knelt on one knee and slid the ring onto my ring finger. It fit perfectly, with no gap to fake. Olivia, from now on, every anniversary will be just for us. He stood up and looked at me tenderly. I turned to look out the window. The falling snow covered the filth and ugliness outside. And it completely buried my past. I raised my champagne glass. Nathan, I look forward to spending the rest of my life with you. I lifted my glass. Nathan replied softly, My pleasure, Olivia.